morning, everyone. I'm here to present the Connecting Europe facility, as David explained, and we have already been talking about it a great lot since Manuel presented the essentials about the Connecting Europe facility. My name is Rodrigues-Frade, and I have my colleague here, Emily Ryan, and we come from Brussels. I come from the Directorate General of Informatics, Digit. I work with a lot with the DG Connect, and I will explain why. I must say that it has been a great pleasure up to now to be working with David, with Janet, with Gulda, and all of you. A very interesting journey that takes us to today, where we can explain what we have been doing to all of you. The main challenge is that, of course, you are integrating a program that is in existence since 2014, that comes with its own jargon, with its own concepts, and I always believe that the most important part now is to really try to understand each other. You know, what is this Connecting Europe facility program thing? How does it work? How is it been working? Because we will be integrating something that has been working already for quite some time, and how we will contribute to the objectives of the program, and what we expect from you, and what can you expect from us. So setting those expectations is, I would say, the first challenge, and then, of course, making things happen. So I will take you through, step by step, what we have been doing in the Connecting Europe facility. We will start with the concepts, because it's very important that you understand what the CEF program is, what it entails, how does it work. Because it's very different from H2020, it has nothing to do with CIP either. So those two, let's say, programs that were run also by DG Connect, they work more on the research world, whereas CEF is not research, CEF is operations. And then we have this funny name, reuse in the 21st century, because you will integrate CEF as what we call a building block. So the main objective is that others reuse eArchiving. So we have to explain what that entails. And to be reused, you need to have a service offering, which makes sense. And then you have to have some governance on the service offering. And this is what we have been discussing with David. And then I will let the floor to Emily. And Emily will explain to you what we have been doing to integrate eArchiving into the CEF program. Okay? And she will explain step by step where we are today with that journey. So the CEF building blocks. Okay, we start from the top. And the top is that the Connecting Europe facility is a funding program. So a funding program means basically it's money. It's money that is made available to three, what we call sectors: transport, energy, and telecom. The Connecting Europe facility is actually the infrastructure program of the European Union. So overall it's 33 billion euro invested in these three sectors, from which 1 billion goes to the telecom sector. And that's actually the smallest part. But it's still 1 billion, so we can do things with it. And the telecom part, we divided into two areas. This is why it's called telecom, which is a bit confusing to some people. We divided it into broadband, which is really, really small. It's only, I think, 170 million euro. And all the rest goes to what we call CEF Digital. And this is why many times we prefer to talk about CEF Digital and not about CEF Telecom, because this is not about the GSM network. Okay? This is about digital services that work cross borders, that make Europe, more connected. And that connection, of course, started with transport, and then energy, and now it's going for the first time to telecom, because the infrastructure program of the Union has been there since the Treaty of Rome. And it always has been focusing on transport, of course, and as you can see there, it's the largest part is 26 billion goes to transport, which makes sense. I mean, roads and all sorts of transport projects. Now, when the funding program comes, it comes with a regulation that makes it possible for us to give the money to different entities. And then we have to create what we call guidelines for each one of the sectors that explains how the money will be distributed. And then finally, the allocation is done through what we call CEF work programs. The guardian of the telecom part is DG Connect. So actually, I come from a DG that is working together with DG Connect in this endeavor of making all this work. Okay? So we work closely together, of course. So if you look at the Connecting Your Facility, and I'm talking really about the CEF digital part, okay? Because if you go online, you can find all sorts of things. So we're talking about CEF digital. What we try to fund there is digital services in different sectors. So the Connecting Your Facility can fund programs in projects in the justice domain, e-procurement domain, open data domain, business domain, so we have there the BREEZE project, ESSI, in the social security domain. So we fund digital services in all of these domains as long as they are cross-border and as long as they work for the European citizens and for companies and public administrations in production. So these are not research projects. All of them, if you go online, they are actually already today working and providing services to you. So if you go to the Justice portal, you will go there and you say find a company. So you go directly from there to company's house in the UK, for example. And you extract information from the company. So all of those portals, they work across borders, and they're called, for some reason, the core service platform of that digital service infrastructure. Now, these are many concepts and a lot of jargon, but what you can think about is that there is a bit of all these projects that is actually typically with the European Commission. So the European Commission puts online these portals. These portals are created and operated by the European Commission. Now, all of them need some hook with the member state. Because we have to connect, for example, in the case of the BREEZE project, the business registers project, we have to create hooks with all the business registers in Europe. So we have to have the possibility to extract their data. And that is done with grants. So we have, on one hand, money that is given to the European Commission to put in place these portals, and then we also issue competitive grants to the member states in each one of these sectors so that they can apply and do the bit that is done at the national level with the support of the European Commission funding, which is typically 75% on the eligible costs part. Okay? Then, thirdly, there is another important concept here, is that the sectors, they get money, but they have to use building blocks. So when all these portals are built, they have to reuse building blocks. And this is an obligation enshrined in the regulation. So being a building block is a bit of a responsibility, because you should be actually working with the different domains and providing them services and solutions that they can use to provide the services to the citizens, to the businesses and public administrations. Okay? So this is why we have the three numbers there. CEF digital is about these three things. Typically portals that are European-wide, grants that you can find on the EMEA website, and then building blocks that are actually operated in Digit. Most of them, this one will be a sort of a joint venture, but this is why I'm coming from Digit, because I only look at building blocks, and I provide building blocks to those sectors, and I ensure that they are working. And if they are not, they come after me. So, this is how the game works. So regarding now the allocation of funds to the different sectors, to the different DSIs, digital service infrastructures, the Connecting Your Facility works with work programs. What does that mean? It means that there is an expert group where every member state is represented, and there is a committee that makes decisions about on how the money will be used, together with the European Commission. And then that work program becomes what we call an implementing act, meaning that we can implement whatever is in there and becomes usable. Okay. What does that actually entail for today? You currently are proposed in the 2018 as a new digital service infrastructure with a certain budget. You meaning eArchiving. That means that we have to wait until there is a formal decision and that the work program of 2018 is adopted by the college to have you as formally as a CEF building block. So when we talk to you here today, there is no formal decision on the work program. And that means that until then, this is something that may happen, but it's not for sure. Now, we believe that it will happen, and this is why we came here. If you want to know how a CEF work program actually looks like, there are already 4 examples, and there will be 3 more in the future, because CEF runs from 2014 to 2020. So typically, when you open the work program, you have the different DSIs in the different sectors, so it will say justice, procurement, so forth and so on. And then for each one of them, we divide the money in the so-called core service platform. So the part that is at EU level, and then grants. And then we have amounts for each one of them. So in the future, it might be that the archiving could, if we arrive to a conclusion that it makes sense, also have the grants part, which I don't believe it's part, cannot say it formally. I don't believe it's part now of the current work program, simply because you need to have a core service platform, makes sense, before you have the grants. Because first you have to have the services up and running before you issue a call for grants. There's a certain sequence there. And this is why, when David talks about training and help desk, all this needs to be there, because if the member states are applying for a grant, they need to make sure that you are there to support them implementing the e-archiving solution. So there's a sequence. As you can see there, all the other building blocks that are there today are already used in production. So you must be used in production. So your solution, and we evaluated that, and we actually was part of that team, we understood that the e-ARK large-scale pilot led to something that is currently mature enough to be used by the domains. So this is why you were selected among many candidates. So it was not, let's say, a straightforward process. You really had to prove a number of things. What you will see is that you will be part of a family, which is the one I show you here on the screen. So the other building blocks are electronic ID, electronic signatures, e-delivery, electronic invoicing, and e-translation. These are the other building blocks, and hopefully we will be adding the archiving to the list. And the CEF building blocks, this goes exactly as you have presented, are a collection of specifications, what David explained as the heartbeat of every building block, the specifications. Then you might or might not have sample software, and you should have services structured in a service offering that can be put on what we call the CEF digital website, where people can go and look at how can I benefit from this building block. So I'll give you an example. If you go online and you look at the e-justice portal, let's say that you want to find a company, you want to find a lawyer, you have European payment order if you are a company to issue across borders. So this is a portal that brings justice to your fingertips through a portal. You don't need anymore to go and travel and find the world to get to do whatever you need. What is interesting there is that this portal reuses most of our building blocks. So you can log in with the ID. The site is multilingual thanks to e-translation. There is a possibility for you to sign, and you send the documents around Europe through e-delivery. But you don't see it. People will not necessarily say, this is great, I have the archiving here. I mean, the building blocks are typically hidden, but they are powering all the different projects in the different sectors. That's the difference between a building block and all the others. They are cross-domain. They are not only cross-border, but they are cross-domain. And so far, since 2014, we get to a reuse level, which we estimate at around 70%. So it means that all the different projects in the different domains, they reuse the building blocks substantially. And as you can see there, e-delivery, they all need to send documents because it's connecting Europe. Most of them need signatures, some of them are afraid. Most of them are using EID, e-translation, invoicing, they don't invoice because they're public services. So what we do is that we would add then a column e-archiving, and we would start monitoring how the domains are interested or not in your, let's say, building block. In that case, our building block. And as you can see there, the building blocks, as e-archiving, most of them come from the large-scale palettes. So most of them come from the CIP in any case. So this is, of course, a good fit into all the others. Stork led to EID, then we have PEPL leading to e-delivery, and all of them are Power A's, but you are Power P, that's not a problem. The main difference, I would say now, between e-archiving and the others is that EID signature and e-delivery have a regulation, which is called the EID regulation, that somehow mandates their use, especially for EID. Whereas you don't have a regulation. That's the main difference, I would say, between you and the other building blocks. We have one such case, e-translation also, does not really have a EU regulation which can be mapped directly to it. You can have sectorial regulations, I guess, but you don't have an encompassing all like EIDAS does provide obligation to all public services enable EID, So that could be a challenge, of course, in the uptake. Okay, so you have to go really sectorial and see what needs are there to be met, I guess. Something to be discussed. So, why we believe that this is, in any case, a very good idea, and why building blocks will continue to be, I would say, a solution for the future, both for the Commission and Member States. So if we look at what is happening currently, we take a step back, we see that Europe is becoming more and more digital. What is interesting is that in 2017, in something that Connect calls the Digital Economy and Society Index, Europe has reached the 50% mark in terms of its digital performance. So it means that public sector, private sector, use of internet and digital public services are becoming really a reality. And what does that mean? It means that everything that in the past you could do with paper, you will start doing digitally. So archives will also go to be digital archives because most of the information will be in digital form. It means that the sectors that we typically work with, so if we go to justice or if we go to any of the other sectors, social security and so on, they all face similar issues. In the past, they had a very linear value creation of, for example, regulations and laws. They were able to, still organize things in silos. It was mostly about physical presence. They had very milestone type of approach. Today, they understand that they are talking more and more to ecosystems. Most of the regulations, they have some cross-sectorial aspect. And it's a lot about digital presence, because everything is becoming digital, and that requires speed. So because of those challenges, they face common challenges and they need common solutions. So there is more and more a need for what we call building blocks. And what we see today is that these common solutions are going to be an essential part of the digital single market. Without them, we will be too slow. And as we need to increase speed, we will need more and more to think building block. So these are some of the benefits that we preach, that when we go and see the different sectors, we'll tell them you will reduce your cost, you will shorten time to market, and it will be simpler for you to be up and running with whatever regulation you need to implement. And both at EU level and at member state level. Now, one twist here is that when we speak about building block, this is not the Commission doing it all alone and providing the solutions to the sectors that are here in the demand side. We have to work with the ecosystem, and I think this was a good point of David and Ulla. We hope that e-archiving, like the other building blocks, becomes a shared responsibility between the European Commission and the whole ecosystem. And the grants also help that. So your specifications in the ideal world of the building blocks should be taken up by the private sector that provides software and solutions, cloud-based, wherever that might be, that is ready to be used. We don't want these building blocks crystallized in some software that is unique and provided by some obscure DG in the Commission from Brussels. The idea is not that one. The idea is that we are able, through the CEF up to 2020, to create incentives for this ecosystem to develop, to become stronger, and to become sustainable. And not only for you, but for all the other building blocks. And this is what we are doing with the CEF program, is to understand their ecosystem, what are their needs, what are the services they require, and then we try to find incentives and make sure that in 2020 they develop to a sustainable, let's say, way of working. So what we have been trying to do together with you, and we're halfway there, is to have a good understanding, because it's quite complex, I mean, I must say, of what is the ecosystem and what do they need at this point in time to go to the next step. So you did the E-ARK project, it was very successful, you have a lot of interest from the member states because they subscribed your proposal, so we know that. But at some point we really need to understand, how is the private sector involved? How do we get the member states to implement what you propose? You know, what will be the future? You know, so we really have to have an holistic view to know. I mean, if we go ahead with grants, who are we targeting? Are we targeting the private sector? Are we targeting the public sector? Are we targeting only national archives? You know, so that exercise has to happen as a, let's say, holistic approach. It cannot just be by chance. You know, national archives seems like a good idea. And this is why we have this famous service offering. So we don't oblige you to do the service offering. We did kind of that. But I know. But we don't oblige you to do it just for the fun because it's yellow and green and you know. It's not that. It's just like this is public intervention. So we need to know what we are doing because, as you said, the tap will not be running forever. So either we take good decisions today to ensure that in the future this has an impact, or it's kind of wasted time and money. So the idea is that, again, CEF is about operations, about services that can be used by people to offer services that are impacting the life of citizens, businesses, and administrations. It's not research, that's not the point. So you need to have services that make sure that your ecosystem develops so that you become sustainable. I hope this is understandable. So we get to the service offering. Almost done here. If you go to the website of CEF Digital, the building block website, what you will see is that all building blocks have a service offering. And the service offerings are online. They are clear to everyone. They can be consulted by you now on your phone. If you go to the website, which is there, ec.europa.eu CEF Digital, what you will see as well is that every service has a service offering description. Yes. And the service offering descriptions can be downloaded, and you will need to describe very clearly what it means, that service, I mean, in the E-ARK. So you will need to have this idea of, this is what we provide, this is the supply, this is the demand, and all these different elements will need to be created in your first year. And the governance has to be there, and you will be together with us putting that into place.
Okay, thank you very much for the informative presentation.